Hi everyone. So this screencast is going to talk you through the couple of extra steps that you're going to need to do if you use one Moodle course for multiple blocks of a course you teach. Um, all the steps that we gave in the last video about getting your students enrolled are the same. The only difference is that you then had to add them to what's called a grouping in Moodle in order to make sure that the assessment conflicts calculate correctly. And so if you've played around with Moodle in the past, you may have seen that there are such things as Moodle groups and such things as Moodle groupings, and the distinction between the two might not be super clear. So what I'm going to do is just walk you through the simplest process of getting those set up in the right way. So as we showed in the last video, the first thing you're going to have to do is enroll your students into your course. So under Course Administration, Users, we're going to go to Enrolled Users. And you can use this Enrolled Users button to add all of your students into your course. And here what you're going to do is you're going to add all students from all blocks that use this Moodle page. So it doesn't matter if they meet in block 1 or they meet in block 4 or whatever blocks you teach, just add them all into this Enrolled Users list. So you can see I have my two students set up, Tess Testerson and Fofo Hawk. So once those students are listed in the Enrolled Users list, then I'm going to come over here to Course Administration, Users, Groups to set up my groups. If you haven't set up any groups at all, these dialogues are going to be blank. So what you're going to do is you're going to come under here and you're going to hit Create Group. And you're going to create a group for each block that you teach. So let's say I teach block 2. I'm going to save changes. And you can see block 2 is now listed as a group. And then I will create a group for the other block I teach, which is block 5. And all I'm doing here is adding the name of the block into the group name here. Okay, now for each of these you can see that there's this little 0 listed next to them, and that means that there are 0 users in that group so far. So in order to add users into the group, you're going to select the group and hit Add and Remove Users. And over here you'll see their potential members, so these are all the students that are listed as members of my course, and let's say only Tess Testerson is part of block 2. So I'm going to go ahead and select Tess Testerson and add that student into block 2. And I'll continue doing this for all of the students that I have in block 2. And then when I'm done, I'll just hit back to groups. And you can see now that that number is changed to a 1, and you can see that Tess Testerson is now listed as a member of block 2. I'll do the same thing for block 5 here, so when I select it, you see there are no members yet. I'll add and remove users, and then I'll add Fofo Hawk into that block, because that's the block that student is in. So I'll click Add to move that student over. And then back to groups. So now in the groups you can see I have block 2 has Tess Testerson and block 5 has Fofo Hawk. Now here's where the sort of peculiar thing comes in with Moodle, is that you can't actually assign an assessment per group, you can only do it per grouping. And what obviously the next question is how does a grouping differ from a group? And the answer is not much, really. And basically the easiest thing to do is to create a grouping for each block the same way that we created a group, and add that block in. So I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to come over here to the Groupings tab now that we have our group set up. And I'm going to create a grouping. And I'm going to name these the same thing that I named those groups I created. So I'm going to create a grouping for block 2. And I'm going to create a grouping for block 5. And now what you're going to do is over here, this little icon that looks like people, you're going to hit that, and that's where you're going to add your groups over. Effectively, groupings are groups of groups. So, but I'm just going to do sort of a one-to-one correspondence here and add my block 2 group into my block 2 grouping, and my block 5 group into my block 5 grouping. And so you can see here when I'm done, under this Groupings tab, I should have a grouping that's named block whatever with the group block whatever for each of the blocks I teach. So block 2, block 2, block 5, block 5. Then if you want to check to make sure that you did it right, you can come over to this Overview tab, which is going to list each block with the students that are related to that block. So here are all my students in block 2, here are all my students in block 5. Once that's done, I'm good to go. So I can go back to my course main page to add an assessment. I'll turn editing on if I need to by hitting the turn editing on button, and I will add an assessment maybe to the low-level computing unit. I'm going to hit add an activity or resource, select Blake Upper School Assessment. And so the only thing that differs now is that you're going to have to specify your assessment per group. So what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down here and go under Common Module Settings, change the group mode to Separate Groups, and then you can select your grouping. So I can select the Block 2 grouping here, and then I can add my assessment exactly the same way. Block 2 exam, select a date for it, and save and return to course when I'm done. You can see here if I actually select the different groupings, the calendar will reload and actually tell me which students in that grouping have particular assessment conflicts. So this is really nice. So I can change my grouping to whatever block I'm looking at currently and see where conflicts on the assessment calendar are. So maybe this is my block 2 exam, and then I can save and return to course. And you'll see it pop up there, and it'll even give the name of the block right next to the exam right there.